But you know, you can't stop doing it even if it's difficult, because it's so obvious it's there to be done. I'm involved at the moment with the Olympics. I was involved in bidding for the Olympics to try to make sure that culture and education had a really central part of the Olympic movement when we inherited it in 2012. And I'll tell you why I got involved. Because the Olympics and the Paralympics are an example of somebody, a particular person, Pierre de Coubertin, inventing something which is so ambitious and so audaciously ambitious that actually I think he has the right, even in his death, to be protected, to have his views protected. He was an educationalist. He believed that all children ought to be able to be in a situation where they could directly experience the inspiration of human achievement. He invented the modern Olympic movement because he said there was a malaise in French youth, that French youth were sick and unresponsive and unable to act in a vital, courageous way, because he said they saw no evidence that adults wanted a better world. And if adults didn't want a better world, why would children? And so he decided to return to the idea of what democracy meant, not just a voting democracy, but the idea that it meant in the Greek period, putting on display extraordinary human achievement, the metaphor of the great artist, the great runner, the great educationalist, not as the thing in itself, isn't it marvellous that so-and-so won a medal, but actually look what a human can do. Now, to wake up one morning and say, and I think what I'll do is I'll make this symbol of every single nation will walk through one door together on the same day, and to actually achieve it and pull it off was an extraordinary thing. I mean, totally amazing. To have had that level of ambition and then to see it through. Now, it may at times through the Olympic movement have got squandered in rather Byzantine ideas of sponsorship and stadiums and medals being the only construct through which we saw the Olympic movement. But actually, it is so much more than that. And when you invent a world movement, you have to keep moving it, and generation after generation, you have to step in those footsteps that went before and move it on. And when we get the Olympics in 2012, it must be a way of inspiring young people through education, through sport, through culture, to say, I could be something so much more than people think I can be, and I will be. But that's an example. The Olympic movement is an example of a great world idea that one person invented. And incidentally, they kicked him out of the Olympic movement quite quickly because they found him too radical. And they didn't want to deal with all his ideas. And the biggest idea he had of all, which was to do with the Olympic torch, was he wanted every nation to learn about every other nation's culture. Because he said, until nations understand each other's cultures, you will never have world respect and you'll never have world peace. So this is a journey that the Olympic movement could continue on for another 100, 200 years. UNICEF, another incredibly important world movement. The United Nations, a great world movement. When democracies and civilizations realize that something is important and then champion it, it takes people, to carry on with the Olympic metaphor, it takes people to pick up the baton and hand it on, and hand it on, and hand it on. So your doggedness is about education. Your doggedness is to say that it isn't good enough for education to sit in a box that just belongs to some professionals. It is about all of us, and your doggedness should be to attack back at those complacent citizens that are most of the rest of us, and say, you must be involved in young people's rights. Your doggedness is to say, you know that children are not being allowed their flint to take spark, and we have to change the system to allow them to do that. And it will be hard, I think, because some people don't want to change enough. So when Peter and Mick said, would I come and talk, I thought, well, I can't really tell you what you should or could do. You're the experts. I don't work directly in education as you do, but I can tell you that in the time that I've been marching along, I think that the arts has gradually changed a lot in this country for the better. But I'm still shocked to discover that that hasn't prevented downward mobility. So all of these street events and public sculptures and fountains and massive elephants walking through London and big spiders in Liverpool, it hasn't prevented downward mobility. And that's a terrible thing to think. So what could prevent downward mobility? Education. It's only about education. It's only about the human right to education for everybody. And I know that the arts can help that story, but it's not finally about that. It is a bit chastening to watch education, and so many other iterations of that. But what it does tell you is that in people's souls, they know this is true. And like all other areas of human rights, it takes a step forward, it takes a step backwards, and then it takes a stumbling step forwards, and maybe you'll get 2 more steps at that go. So I really hope in the founding of this radical movement that you will take big steps forward. And I really hope that you can find yourself individually in a position of leadership and determination to inspire other people to come with you. Because all of our children and all of our young people need you to do that. And it needs to be independent, spirited people that do it. It's not ever going to be done just by governments or ever done by just institutions. It's only people that change things, and people who are prepared to stand on a pedestal in a light, and if necessarily have tomatoes thrown at them. Those are the people who change things. So I'm grateful for you inviting me here just to witness the fact that you're going to do this amazing thing. And I'll be standing on the sidelines or in the middle, encouraging and hoping that we can give our next generation of children an even better opportunity in the world, because they deserve it. Thank you.